territory of Bengal. And the river changes names. It becomes the Hooghly. Here, the British Empire had transformed the Ganges into a trade route. Back then, the British Crown set up a trading post, as did France. Welcome to Chandernagore. Neline Mondal is our guide. Some 30 years ago, while on mission for UNESCO, she fell in love with this city.
Liberté, égalité, fraternité. Chandernagore avait deux parties, français et anglais. C'est-à-dire qu'ici, je suis debout sur le territoire anglais. Une fois traversé le pont, nous sommes dans le territoire français. Il y avait 4 douanes comme ça. Et ce qui est très intéressant, c'est que les soldats anglais qui marchaient sur GT Road, ils avaient leurs fusils, ils tenaient leurs fusils sur l'épaule. Une fois traversés dans le territoire français, ils devaient pointer en bas leurs fusils. Et quand de nouveau ils sortaient beaucoup plus loin du côté du comptoir néerlandais de Chinsura, ils sortaient par l'autre douane, de nouveau ils pouvaient remettre leurs fusils sur l'épaule.
Another time when this region was shared between Holland, Portugal, Denmark, Great Britain and France. Joseph-François Dupleix, the French governor, developed this city. Business generated by the river's trade route made fortunes for both European and Indian families. Neline Mondal belongs to one of these dynasties. For more than 25 years, she's lived in this palace. It belongs to her husband's family. The interior oozes grandeur and decadence. Moldings, bas-reliefs, and Corinthian columns are a reminder of the style of old Europe. There are also signs of Indian architecture. Here, Neline is performing puja, a religious ritual.
Chandernagore, ça veut dire je donne l'eau du Gange. C'est pour que les mauvais esprits ne viennent pas au crépuscule. Et il faut se laver les mains et s'habiller. Et il faut que ce soit des habits purs, c'est-à-dire c'est tout à fait propre, ça n'a touché à personne ni à rien, autre que les choses pour le puja. Et voilà, le tour est joué. Ici, ce n'est pas l'Europe, c'est l'Inde. Donc on doit bouillir le lait et je vais faire du fromage blanc aujourd'hui. Ce qui est facile à faire.
Donc nous sommes dans la cuisine.
Voilà, exactement. Et voici avec quoi on coupe ici au Bengale. C'est pas le couteau par ici. Alors on appelle ça le boti. Ça coupe de ce côté-ci. Donc je fais comment? Je pose par terre, ainsi, et je pousse, je cale. Et voilà, le tour est joué. Je prends, je coupe et je verse. Ça, c'est la tradition millénaire. C'est même pas des centaines, mais des milliers d'années. Bon, petit à petit, ça commence... Ah, voilà, là, l'eau est clarifiée. Voilà, elle est bonne, là. Voilà, ça veut dire que le lait a bien caillé. Parfait. Mag Golmar geschlagen?
Non, Mathilde.
Oh, de Bolitz. Et voilà. Je vais emmener ça, emporter en haut chez ma belle-mère.
Far from the norms that prevail in Europe, here all the generations live together. The mother-in-law lives on the first floor. But in this palace of 65 rooms live 34 people, all from the same family.
On les appelait seigneurs. C'était vraiment une petite royauté. Pas une grande, mais une royauté quand même. Ici, c'est ma chambre, c'est le vieux lit de famille. Il y a même l'emblème de famille, là. On voit bien, là, le symbole et l'emblème de famille est engravé dans le lit. Toutes les peintures, tant ici sur le plafond que les murs, c'est exactement les mêmes peintures de murs, les mêmes frescoes qu'à Fontainebleau.
In the early 20th century, this palace became a refuge for Indian philosophers and nationalists resisting the British occupation.
C'est ici qu'on creusait la terre pour faire les briques et pour construire les bâtiments. C'est pour ça que toutes les très vieilles maisons, vous voyez qu'il y a un étang juste à côté.
In the colonial era, Chandannagar was nicknamed the Petit Paris. The city has preserved some vestiges of that period, such as the governor's residence, now the Duplex Museum. The former Hotel de France converted into law courts, the Sacré-Cœur Church, and even the promenade along the Ganges. Aisharia Tipnis is an architect. At the request of the French government, she is carrying out an inventory of the city's European heritage. She has listed 99 buildings like this one. Since her last visit 6 months ago, half of this house has already been demolished.
So this is a typical Indo-French house, which, as you saw from outside, had a very European look. But inside, it's this typical Indian courtyard planning. You have cast iron columns, you have stucco arches. So there's this subtle amalgamation of the two cultures, the Indo-European culture of Chandannagar, which is what we're trying to, bring out. It's not about the buildings, it's not about the architecture. It's about how these two cultures intermingle with each other to produce these gems of architecture.
For many Indian property owners, the upkeep of these large residences is a luxury they cannot afford. This yellow house, a balcony overlooking the Ganges, is one of the city's best preserved.
So this is Patal Badi. It's one of the oldest French houses also in Chandannagar. Here is the stark contrast that we were talking about between houses where the owners do not have any kind of funding or are not very financially well off. This is one house where the owners are well off and they're interested in maintaining their house. And thus you can see how it's still maintaining its original character and its beauty. And it's one of the gems that anybody who's coming to Chandannagar. So this is the incredible colonial house that we have with a very nice cast iron staircase and timber louvered doors that we don't get nowadays. This has this provision, so when the sun would come, they would put them down, and when they wanted the wind, they would put them up. And you have all these louvered shutters to protect from the sun, the rain. This was the veranda. Most people in the olden times, they spend maximum time in the veranda, taking the breeze in, watching life go by. And it's a very integral part of all buildings of Chandannagar, the veranda.
In the colonial era, every house would have a veranda. There is still another, more ingenious way of remaining cool. Patal Bari, the name of this house, means the underground house.
Oh, it's a full floor. Wow. It's incredible.
This was the kitchen. When we were young, we used to have lunch here.
Incredible. So you had to put the girder, the steel girder.
Sinking or something, little bit cracks.
Right. But these are the Burmatic ones, the old ones.
The old ones.
So this is the
Old thing.
old Burmatic, which is why it's survived for 200 years. Today, it's more costly than gold. Wow. So are we going under the street? This is the strand.
Street is next room.
Oh, wow.
You got mine ahead.
It's almost like a treasure trove.
You see the strand there?
Yeah, that's the strand.
Another road level. That's where they call it Patal Bari.
Wow. In the summer when it probably gets hot, it's a nice and cozy environment to be here. And in the monsoon, when the water level at the Ganges goes up, this would get flooded and then they would go on top. You must see this gentleman catching the fish. And still catching the fish in the same traditional way he was 200 years ago. Don't you feel like you're trapped in time? Chandannagar is, I think the speciality of Chandannagar is that you really feel that you've gone back in time. You have the old houses and you have the old people and you have the old ways of life, which is something we totally miss out in city living. And that's why it's special. There's still a chance to save it, which we've lost everywhere else in this world.
Independent since 1951, Chandannagar has nonetheless conserved a certain attachment to France. Even today, pupils who choose the language of Molière are exempt from payment of school fees.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Alors, vous vous souvenez de monsieur et madame Martin qui ont dîné chez les amis? Et ils étaient au régime. Ils étaient au régime.
The architect comes to the former duplex college to make the students and teachers aware of the slow disappearance of French heritage.
Il y a une faute d'orthographe ici. D'héritage par le conseil. Par.
Ah oui, d'accord. D'accord.
The Indian architect presents her work. Published in the form of a booklet, it could help promote awareness both with the authorities and among the very young.
We've collected all this data and information, but the idea was not to make a coffee table book on heritage buildings of Chandernagore. Once upon a time there was this heritage. The idea is to take it forward.
Yes.
So we think that this whole project should, get now grassroots level support, and then the college is a very integral part to bring the people together, bring the youngsters together.
The French teacher believes it's the owners of these palaces who need persuading.
There are many people who can afford to spend in renovating these heritage buildings, but they won't because they want a safe lifestyle, They want money, they want a new flat in return, and then they want to keep the money in their bank and have an easy life.
Neline Mondal knows the clock is ticking. In 5 or 10 years' time, it will be too late to save all these endangered masterpieces. But what will remain are the sunsets over the Ganges that she loves to contemplate from the roof of her palace.
Je n'ai pas besoin de théâtre, cinéma, sortie, exposition. Quand je suis fatiguée, vraiment, je monte sur le toit et je jouis du toit, rien d'autre. Ben carrément, je monte sur ces choses-là. Hop là. Oh, j'adore ça. La vue qu'il y a ici, c'est incroyable. Je vois le Gange, je vois la maison de tous mes cousins, je vois toutes les maisons, je vois carrément le Gange de mon toit. J'adore à cause de ça les pannes de courant. C'est trop génial. Parce que quand il y a panne de courant, tu montes sur le toit le soir, il y a les étoiles, il y a la lune, il y a machin, il y a les petites bougies. Donc on a vraiment l'impression dans le vieux quartier sans électricité d'être plongé dans le 19e siècle. Eh bien, moi, j'adore ça.
No other river embodies India more perfectly than the Ganges. Writers, researchers, photographers, believers and non-believers, poets and singers all recount and celebrate the great history of this country. A history which is ongoing just as the river runs. The River Ganges, river of gods and men.
নদী ভরা ঢেউ বোঝো না তোকে